Om Tare Tu Re Mangalam Shri Mahapani Swaha. Om Tare Tu Re Mangalam Shri Mahapani Swaha. Om Tare Tu Re Mangalam Shri Mahapani Swaha. Om Tare Tu Re Mangalam Shri Mahapani Swaha.
Hello and welcome everyone to the Lama Life livestream event of Lama Tsultrim Allione. Thank you all for joining us today. I'm Dreame, connecting with you all the way from Poland, and it's a pleasure to be your host for this gathering. Today, we are very fortunate to have Lama Tsultrim Allione joined by her son, Tulku Ösel Dorje. Let me briefly introduce our special guest today. During his 20s, Tulku Ösel spent several years in extended solitary retreat in a cabin at Taramandala and did several pilgrimages throughout Asia, practicing in caves and power places. In 2019, he was enthroned by Lama Tsultrim as the Dorje Gyaltsab Vajrayana of Taramandala, and in 2020, Lama Tsultrim and Tulku Ösel began to teach Edzom Pela Rinpoche's termas of the Ösel Nyingtik cycle. Tulku Ösel is now a resident Lama at Taramandala in Colorado, where he lives with his wife Cady and their two sons, Bodhi Archer and Jalu Dorje. We're so thrilled to have Tulku Ösel join Lama Tsultrim for this Lama Live. So please join me in giving our teachers a very, very warm welcome. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Happy Mother's Day. Since my family's here together, I thought that we would bring them on for a minute to say hi and to say
Happy Mother's Day!
Everyone and every single one of you.
Lots of love to you all. This is Jalu Dorje.
Hello.
And this is Bodhi Archer.
Hi.
And this is Cady. Hi. Cady. So, Tulku Ösel, and this is, of course, Michael, my partner. So they're gonna head out to a park while we talk together, but just wanted to bring in the family since we're talking about mothers, and let us know where you're tuning in from this morning. And yeah, happy Mother's Day. I know it's not Mother's Day in every country, but it apparently is in Germany and the United States. So it's one day a year for what mothers do every day.
Let's go. Off to the playground. Have a good Mama Life.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Michael, you're coming.
Okay. So
Keeping it real.
So Tulku Ösel and I have actually never done a Love Life together.
No.
So we're together at this time, and so I thought, it's Mother's Day, we should do this. So we talked a little bit about what we might talk about, and so I think to begin with, I'll lead a meditation so that we can all drop in together a little bit and touch each other and think about mothers and the Great Mother. So let's begin by raising bodhicitta, and that's the intention to be together for the benefit of all beings everywhere. And I think with bodhicitta, it's really important to actually feel this from your heart, not just have the theory of it. And the real desire to really benefit every being you can possibly help. Thank you. And so for our meditation, I thought we'd begin, and I'm just going to have my eyes closed during this time to drop in myself a little more than when I'm looking at myself on the camera. So let's feel into the Great Mother. The Great Mother is the ground of being itself, the pure potential from which everything arises, formless, but cognizant, imbued with awareness. This is the true nature of all beings. So let's take a moment and feel into the Great Mother. Vast, limitlessly vast. No center, no fringe. Open. The reason it's called Mother, Great Mother, is it has potentiality. It has the potential of all appearances within it. And yet in itself is not something that you can see or really even depict, although it is depicted iconographically as a naked female figure, usually either dark blue or white, representing space. You really feel this as your ground, the ground of your being is this open awareness. And feel how all beings partake of this. And this is something we can take refuge in, we can drop into at any moment. And as soon as your mind wants to fixate on something, to make something, just look directly at that thought, turn toward it, and it liberates into vastness. This is called the feminine principle. Then out of this manifests all phenomena. So maybe now take a moment and open your eyes and look around to your surroundings. And recognize that whatever you're seeing or hearing, perceiving, is the radiance or the display of that pure potential, the ground of being, the Great Mother. This is all of her children, what she's given birth to. It's really the radiance of the ground, or the luminosity expressing itself in form, and yet still inseparable from the ground. This is the Nirmanakaya dimension of physical reality. And then there's the Sambhogakaya aspect of the feminine, which is actually in the dimension of luminosity. It's not in this dimension that we perceive with our senses. It's a more refined energy that is just pure luminosity. What we perceive has been solidified into elements, densified because of impure perception. We see it as separate. The Sambhogakaya dimension is a dimension of light. And it's in the Sambhogakaya that we have Tara, female Buddha of compassion, and we have the Dakinis, the embodiments of wisdom. So those beings are present always, but we don't see them with our senses, but we can tune into them. So let's maybe close our eyes again a moment. You can also do it with your eyes open and feel into that higher frequency of energy of Sambhogakaya. These beings like green Tara, Tromanakmo, the black dakini, wrathful black dakini. And the male deities are also there in the Sambhogakaya. But I'm just talking about the feminine today because of Mother's Day. All the female deities, many. Vajrayana, Dorje, Chitamani Tara, all the 21 Tara, lion-headed dakini. All those energies. So really we have the three kaya manifestation of the feminine, the grounded being, dharmakaya, open, formless, vast. And we have this luminosity of sambhogakaya, and then what we perceive in nirmanakaya. And we have humans that are embodiments of dakinis or other kinds of female energies. But it's said in the tantric tradition that all women should be seen as dakinis. And it's a 14th root downfall of the tantric vows to not perceive them that way. So let's take a moment and think about all the females in your life, and women, girls, so on, all ages, and feel them as embodiments of wisdom, the wisdom of the feminine. Dakinis. The dakinis move through space and bring the message of emptiness. So let's come back in a moment. Now, ending our meditation, we'll dedicate the merit of a little tuning into the three levels of the feminine, and dedicate the merit of that to all beings. Thank you. So, maybe I'll begin asking you a question.
Okay.
So you're a parent now and have been for 10 years, pretty much?
Almost.
Yeah. And before that, you were really living a lot in retreat, mainly in retreat in your 20s. And so I'm just wondering what that's meant for you in terms of your practice and coming out of retreat and then going into the full-on experience of parenting, and what becoming a parent has meant to you as a practitioner.
Well, becoming a parent has really been an experience of being humbled and constantly being humbled. I think in retreat and maybe even outside of retreat, we have this like ideal situation where we have freedom to do what we want, when we want, how we want. And when we have children, really it's no longer about ourselves. And it's really, for me, it's been just an experience of putting my own needs aside while really wanting to give everything to my children as much as I can. but I definitely discovered that although I thought I had patience and had discipline, really having kids, it's a reality check of where your practice is, because we're constantly being tested, and they're really some of our greatest teachers in that sense. And I really appreciate the opportunity to grow with them and learn my own limitations and continue down the path in a way that perhaps I wouldn't have learned without that. So
Yeah, I feel that too.
yeah.
Because I came out in a way similar, coming from being a nun and then becoming a mother in 9 months,
A
basically.
very short period.
And I think you had that sort of extreme contrast as well, because coming out of retreat and becoming a parent is different than, say, having a job and, being in the world. And that was the thing that I noticed the most was my time. Like, wow, I don't have any time of my own.
Yeah.
From having all my time on my own, I could make my own schedule. And it's hard. And you're sleep deprived.
I think mothers more than husbands.
Yeah, but most parents are somewhat sleep deprived, I think.
They are.
For years on end. So maybe, your kids are kind of extraordinary, I find, and I just wonder what they teach you. Like, what have they taught you about the Dharma?
Well, excuse me. I think Bodhi, from a young age, really, when he was young, I would tell him the stories of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and that was kind of like our evening time together. I would tell these stories, and he loved it. It was really a way of trying just to connect him to the teachings. And I remember we would talk about compassion and really how important it is to be compassionate, and more important, like have empathy really with what's going on around you. And I remember there was this moment, we used to live in Nepal, in Kathmandu. And there was this moment when we were, leaving our house to take him to school every day, and there would always be chickens. And one day he's like, where are all the chickens going? Because there are fewer and fewer chickens every day or every week. And I said, well, they're probably being eaten. And he was horrified. He had never really kind of put together that idea of a living sentient being and the food that's on our table, how that connection. And after that, he became a vegetarian.
How old was he then?
He was maybe 3.5, 4. And
Wow. Really young.
Yeah, very young. And I think what he taught me in that moment was really the importance of first of all, living what you believe. And secondly, also his just natural ability to have that empathy, and I really admire that in him.
Yeah. Does he share that with his at school and stuff?
He does. Yeah, he does share that at school. He has very, very strong inclination towards compassion and for sentient beings, and very much doesn't want like all the other boys in his school, some of them are crushing ants or just doing those kinds of things that let's say boys seem to do. But he's always telling him, No, they have feelings. Can you imagine if somebody came down on you and started crushing you, what you would feel?
Wow.
And sometimes he's trying to teach people meditation at school.
Like how? What does he say?
He just tells people, we could sit down and we could just meditate right now. And so he would sit down and put his hands on his knees, and then he would chant some seed syllables.
What do the other kids do?
I think they're not exactly sure what to make of it.
Does he have a following of students in his school?
Not yet. But he definitely, I have heard, that it's like some kids are talking about meditation, it is
He's
a
having
topic.
an influence.
Yeah, it is a topic that does come up.
Right.
And what about you? Like, what did you feel how did you bring the Dharma into our life?
Yeah. Well, I'll say some of the things that I thought I did, and then you can also say what you experienced.
Yeah.
So one of the main ways that I thought would be a good idea to bring the Dharma to my kids was through altars, shrines, because it's kind of like playing a game to create a shrine. It's like, it's like creating a little house, but you're creating a house for the divine or the sacred. And so I remember in our house in Rome, each of you had your shrine. And Shara particularly had a very active shrine where she had Krishna, she had St. Francis, she had the Buddha, of course, and she had her Buddha. And then she would line her stuffed animals up to be listening to teachings. And then I would also, like in nature, like as a game, like you're out in the woods and okay, let's make a shrine. And so that was definitely a way that I thought could be effective for bringing kids into the Dharma. And the other thing that I did, or another thing, was we had a lot of lamas coming to our house.
Yeah.
And I would always like bring you guys like with them and, eating meals together. And I remember Lama Wangdur came and stayed quite a while at our house. I don't know if you remember that.
I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also other lamas.
Yeah. Well, you really grew up with Nampi Rinpoche.
Yeah, it did. It was special.
Yeah.
I remember playing a lot of games with him.
Yeah.
We would play games for hours.
Yeah.
He loved it.
Yeah.
I loved it too.
Yeah. Yeah. You had a special relationship with him. So that kind of exposure to the Dharma in that sense of is putting them into the teachings. With my two daughters, before you were born, with Sharap and Loki, I was more like pressuring them to meditate and practice. And I really wanted it because I become, a nun. And so I really thought, well, if I am having children, at least they should be practitioners. And I think that was a mistake, actually, in retrospect, because they kind of rebelled against that. And now, they both do some meditation, but with you, I just had kind of given up. Realized that's not really working. And I think that was really the best thing, because then you could kind of find it yourself in your own terms.
Yeah. But I think there was a moment I distinctly remember. In fact, I kind of remember coming home from school, and it was, we lived in New York and
outside New York City.
Yeah, outside New York City in the countryside, and just coming back and coming into your office, which is usually what I would do, and coming back, and you were maybe finishing practice, and you had me come sit in, and you said, I think it would be really important for you to learn how to meditate, and I want to teach you this practice of green Tara. I think I was maybe 10 then. And ironically, it really it was the beginning of really like a heart practice for me that has been for the rest of my life. And,
That's
I
interesting.
still very much connect with Tara all the time. And it's one of my main practices.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, I distinctly remember that moment, you kind of like pulling me aside and really saying, I think this would be important for you.
You understood what I'm doing.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of like to share something.
Yeah.
Give me an idea of what's going on here.
I remember also used to listen to the Chud every night. Like
Yes.
it was back in the days of tapes, cassette tapes, and I had one of
Nakinorbe.
singing the Chud. And that's what you wanted to hear every night. That's really what you went to sleep with.
It was, yes.
Yeah. So that's cool. Yeah. The other thing that I did with them was we didn't have the prayer before meals at that time. I wrote that when we went to Taramandala, but I would always have them hold hands, and there was a moment of silence, and just like to stop, because making a meal, just the intensity of family life is so distracting and exhausting, and so there was just this moment where we just stopped and we held hands and we connected, and especially I think for the cook who's been like doing all these things and getting it on the table, just to like let's land here together for a moment, and then to have some kind of meaningful conversation at meals. I think meals are really important, that families sit down and eat together.
Yeah.
And apparently I've read things like that's not happening so much anymore. Like
everyone's on their phone.
They're on their phone, or they're eating at different times, or this that meal time. And we would ask things like, what was the highlight of your day, and what was your challenge? And we still do that as like the bigger family now with all the grandchildren. And when we gather, we have, what is your highlight and what is your challenge? Because then you can kind of find out a little bit what's happening with your kids. What happened today at school. Like there could have been some really terrible thing that happened, but as a parent, you don't know.
Yeah.
And so then they have that moment to express it. And then on Sunday mornings, we would have counsel. I remember you would take the stick and you were like, I've still got the stick. So this is a Native American tradition, ceremony, I guess you could say, or method of connecting or making a decision, where you have a talking stick and then you pass it around, and whoever has it has the floor, and you can't be interrupted. And so I would do that like every Sunday morning, and our family was fairly chaotic for various reasons. And
we were wild.
Yeah. And there had been divorce and, moving and, so my kids were dealing with a lot. And so to have that moment of sitting together and then speaking whatever's happening for them, I think that those moments of gathering is really important. And also to have a family shrine, if you can, where they actually feel connected to it. So those were some of the things that I did that I can remember. And I remember when Loki went away to college, she came back and it was Thanksgiving. And that was another thing I did. I don't know if you remember this, but I always wanted to have meaning in the holidays.
Oh, like, yes.
Thanksgiving.
You still do.
Yeah. Like Thanksgiving, you have to talk about gratitude. Or Christmas. Like, what is Christmas really? Well, it's, it's the return of the light. And so, but anyway, Loki came back from college and I said, what do you want to do during this vacation? what's important for you. And she said, all I care about is the gratitude circle.
Oh,
Yeah. So that was cool. So, what have you done with your kids? How have you taught them?
well, like I said, I've really tried to just tell the stories of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and I haven't really pressured like
Mhm.
practice or anything like that. I feel like that just comes in time through osmosis.
Sounds like they're more pressuring you.
Sometimes. And but we do have shrines. Each of the kids has their own shrine, and so Bodhi relates to Manjushri.
Why? Did he just come up with that?
Well, he's, let's say, very intellectual,
Uh-huh.
and so that was like the first statue I bought for him when he was very young was a Manjushri statue.
Because of that, or just intuitively?
I think intuitively. I remember when he was maybe 18 months old. He was meeting with Adzam Rinpoche, and Rinpoche had given him refuge, and he kept on reciting the Manjushri mantra to Bodhi. And this is funny because Rinpoche had the mala in his hand, and Bodhi, being 18 months, had the mala in his mouth.
That was his transmission.
So Rinpoche would be saying the mantra with the mala in his mouth. And I think that maybe was the reason why I bought the Manjushri statue, because I just saw that connection there. And then with Jalu, because he had health issues as a child in the beginning, I wanted to give him like a long life statue for that interdependence, and that was also Rinpoche's recommendation. And so we got him a statue of
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Statue of Amitayas. And so these statues are in their rooms, and they each have their own area, and they just recently had this kind of very intense situation happen where like a wild turkey was being eaten alive by an eagle.
Wow.
And
they saw that?
They saw that, yeah.
Where was it?
On the land.
Wow.
And so then they kind of saw this animal die in front of them, and it was a very intense experience for them. I wasn't there, but anyway, they ended up taking one of the feathers. Each one took a feather, and they brought it to their shrine so that the bird would connect with the Dharma. And that was their own desire, that they wanted to bring the bird there so that this bird could be with the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. That was sweet.
Well, it also shows that it's kind of in them, like, oh, this is what you do when this happens. And even having that concept of connecting a spirit or the mind stream of that bird to the Dharma, that's in them.
Yeah.
Nobody told them.
Yeah. And also just those basic, very, I think, important teachings of the Dharma, of the precious human birth.
Yeah.
And that we can lose it, and how important it is how we use it.
Yeah.
And
have you talked to them about that?
Yeah. And those 4 mind changings, I think is very.
Maybe you can say what those are, just in case people don't know.
The precious human birth, karmic cause and effect, and kind of the nature of samsara. What is the nature of samsara, and kind of how that unfolds, and how that's really related to the karmic cause and effect. And I think most importantly, the aspect of impermanence, that how that really has an overarching emphasis in everything that we do, and how important it is to.
So you've talked to them about those things specifically?
Yeah.
That's cool.
And Bodhi more. I mean, Jalu's still quite young. And
when you lived in Nepal, you were surrounded by like the Great Stupa and so on. So did they make offerings there? Did they relate to those?
Yeah.
I guess Jalu was too little.
Yeah, Jalu was still young, but Bodhi did. And, interesting enough, when Cady was pregnant with Bodhi, we would go every day and light butter lamps at the Great Stupa and make aspirations that he would be born, and
Benefit being.
and be a benefit to all sentient beings. And that was something we did almost every day. And so we'll see. But Bodhi definitely, he had, let's say, that experience of living.
Sacred place.
Yeah, the sacred place. And just for those who don't know, there's in Kathmandu, there's this very extraordinary stupa. And it's very big.
Yeah.
And so there's really has this kind of, it's huge. It has this kind of dramatic experience. Every time you turn the corner and you see the stupa, it's all white and with the gold top. And it's always so awe-inspiring. I miss that. I miss those moments. And you turn the corner and you see the stupa. But Bodhi also, he really loved it. And running around. And
did he like candles and stuff?
Candles. And he would be in our pack, and he would want to turn every prayer wheel, which as a parent is an act of patience. And
it's also like thinking about all the germs and stuff on this prayer wheel.
Yeah, par for the course in Nepal.
Yeah.
And but just his love of spinning all the prayer wheels, and so there's prayer wheels all the way around the stupa.
That must have taken like at least a half hour.
It took a while. That's why I said patience for the parent.
Right. Yeah. So what else do you remember about your childhood in terms of the Dharma?
Well, I have fond memories of being at those retreats with Nanke Norbu. And because, really Rinpoche was very much family oriented. And so there were a lot of families, and it was a lot of fun with all the kids.
Yeah.
And we had this, let's say, kind of like divine timing for arriving right at the moment when the Gana Puja, or the feast offering, was essentially being served. The food. And all the kids would descend into their parents' laps for this moment. And I just, Marigar in that forest down below. Oh, it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Special moment.
Yeah, and then in Valley Cottage, when we'd be doing soak, I think Song of the Vajra happened right before the soak, or something. There was some kind of cue. It was like, oh, I hear that. Let's go.
Yeah.
Because there was usually some sweets in the soak, and things that you wouldn't necessarily get otherwise.
Yeah, we also, had our parents' attention.
Yeah, maybe you can tell about that story of Tulku Ösel when you were 12 and getting a transmission, really.
When I was 12, I went with Lama Tsultrim and David on a pilgrimage to Nepal with Nanke Norbu Rinpoche. And actually, I want to tell another story since it's coming to me.
Okay.
And so we went to this Guru Rinpoche spring that was coming out of the stone, out of the cliffside, essentially. And I remember Norbu Rinpoche putting his hand in the spring and then pulling something out. And I was the only one he showed, and it was a small statue. And it was a terma that he had just pulled out of the water.
Wow.
And
what do you remember what the statue was?
I don't actually.
You may not have known at the time.
Yeah. But some years ago, when he was here in Albuquerque, actually, and before he came up to Taramandala, he brought it up to see if I had remembered.
Really?
And I did, and I said, "Do you still have it?" And he said, "Yes." And and he pulled it out.
What?
Yeah,
He had it?
he had it. Yes.
Wow.
And he said at the time, I haven't shown, you're the only one who knows the story because you were there.
Wow.
Anyway,
He told me he had dreams about you. I don't know if
yeah.
I ever told you that, but it was when we were still living in New York, and he said, I've had several dreams about, we called you Nini when you were little, about Nini. And I don't know if he said something like, they were special dreams or something like that. I think he said he's not ordinary, not ordinary.
Yes, unusually wild.
Extraordinarily wild.
But to go back to the story of Tulku Ösel, so it was really an extraordinary pilgrimage, and I'm really glad I went, and also to have been of an age when I could really kind of like absorb it.
Mm-hmm.
And so Tulku Ösel really was one of the great Dzogchen masters of this last century who passed away at the end of the 90s.
1996.
And so one of his particular skills or expertise was pointing out instruction, pointing out the nature of your mind. And so Nankinobu Rinpoche had asked him if he would do that for the group that was coming there. And so we all went into the lakang, or the temple, and we were all sitting there. And I remember, Rinpoche pointing out instruction. And I wouldn't say I really understood what was happening, but I remember kind of coming out of it and being like, I got something from this. I remember saying that, I think it was maybe to Dave. I was like, I don't know what I got, but I felt something there. And yeah, it was very special. And he did it again, but in a private interview, I remember.
With me?
Yeah, with you. And I remember him kind of, looking out of the sky and pointing at the sky.
Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember you saying to us, I got it. Because I actually really thought that you hadn't. I thought, oh, he's too young. This isn't, he's just kind of waiting for us to be done so we can go do something else. But then you said, I got it.
A very confident 12-year-old.
Yeah.
But I think just the importance of always being around the Dharma and being able to go to those retreats, I think it was important in my childhood. And
you did some of the family retreats too.
I did a lot of the family retreats in the beginning at Dharma. Yeah.
How was that?
It was amazing, really, and especially the Native American ceremonies really were just so incredibly powerful. We were doing Vision Quest, and that was really what I was doing at the family retreat, because I was already 13. So those are the practices I was doing with Sparky Shooting Star and Chief Whitehorse. And that cup's gonna slide off. It was very special, and it's something I really look forward to bringing back to the land. And
I think next year.
Yeah, and I really hope to try to also bring back the Native American component. It's very special.
Yeah. So this year there's something for families, right?
Yeah.
Did we talk about that a little bit?
Well, I don't really know all the details about that, because let's say it's still taking shape. And it's going to happen in July. I don't know the date. I want to say it's around the 12th. And it's going to just be something, just a couple days on the land. And it's really for the local community, that we had, let's say, have been relating to there at Pagosa Springs and nearby, but also for anybody who wishes to come join us, it's really going to be about just making that connection with the land and some introductory teachings on meditation and also on counsel will be introduced.
Cool.
And I think the aspect of counsel was really, let's say, something I really took away from our childhood.
Mm-hmm.
And just, I think learning how to express your feelings, your emotions at a young age really has served me later in my life. And so I really hope and to really also share that with my own children, because it really has been something that I've used ever since. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. Yeah, that'll be great, and we can put that up on the website and also announce it here when it happens. But I think in 2024 we'll start the full-on family retreat again. It's usually a week, and so people come from further away, and we did things like every year we'd study a biography of someone or a story, and then the kids would make a play. And I remember my granddaughter, who's now 14, Luna Violet, was Tara. She was Green Tara in one of the plays, and we did Machik, we did the life of the Buddha, and Cady was great in that. She made all the sets
and directed it.
Yeah,
and wrote it.
Yeah, and so it's been very impactful for the kids that have grown up in the family retreat, because we also do have, as he mentioned, this vision quest aspect for the teenagers, which I felt was very important, that they're, you can send your kids somewhere and have them do some sort of vision quest, but to have your family there sending you off. Oh, I just remembered something that happened. We did this cord cutting ceremony.
I remember this.
Yeah. And there was literally a cord between the parent and the child. And when the child was going on the quest, that cord would be cut, and then they would be grabbed by a runner, and they would be, run out of the yurt. Then we didn't have a temple, and then they'd go on their quest overnight alone. And I remember when I was doing it with him, you were pretty young, I think. Still.
13.
Yeah. And it was time to cut the cord, and I said, I'm not ready. And he said, but I am. So it's like, okay, well, I guess I am then.
I totally remember that. Yes, I was ready.
Yeah. Yeah, that I think to have a place that you can take your kids to get some sort of spiritual education. A lot of people aren't relating to churches anymore, and people practice, the adults practice, but is there a place where they can then bring their kids so that they're introduced to it, and it becomes something that the family shares? That's important, and it's been something that Tara Mandala has done from pretty much the beginning. And so I think that's important to reinstitute, and I'm glad that you feel that way too.
Oh, definitely. And I just know, really, with a lot of the kids that have kind of grown up with the family retreat, that I know many of them still have really, really close friendships.
Yeah, there's a whole group of them that see each other all the time, go to each other's weddings. Some of them went. One of them was in the Peace Corps in Africa, and then some of them went to see them.
Yeah,
see that person there. So that's cool. So maybe the last thing we could talk about was maybe the experience of the mother female deities in terms of, like, for you, how is it relating to those female deities, or like Mother Tara or the
Mm.
Great Mother, or
Mhm.
you know, this is a very key part of our practice.
Yeah. Well, it might be an understatement to say that I grew up around the enlightened feminine, and also that it was really a priority of yours throughout your life,
Yeah.
obviously. And what's interesting is also, I probably didn't necessarily fully understand a lot of that growing up, but I definitely understand it now. And my own, let's say, core practices, they're actually all female. And maybe that's because of the influence of my childhood, or maybe it's also just, I think, the karma of the world that we live in, really how important for the enlightened feminine to really be practiced right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but definitely my main practice is the wrathful feminine. And so but I think it's very special to have these practices that we have. And
how so? Like, why?
Well, they're just very recent termas that were just, really recently revealed, and since their revelation, they've been my core practices. So from now almost 20 years, the practice of Troma Nagmo, and then after that, the practice of Yeshit Sogyo.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, it's been a huge part of my practice. And whether that was my upbringing or not, I have no idea. Or karma. It's hard to say.
So as a male, how is that? Like how is that?
Well, I've always, let's say, gravitated towards the feminine. And
you have a pretty amazing wife.
I have an amazing wife, for sure. And for me, it was never like a big deal, like, oh, I'm doing a feminine practice. It really wasn't what I was thinking about. It was really what I was drawn to, and especially the practice of Troma Nagmo. And it just felt like I was coming home, just part of me. But that doesn't mean I've definitely practiced many male yidams and so on. But what I do every day are the enlightened feminine. I guess I haven't really thought about that too much.
Yeah, it's just part of you. Yeah. Well, and I think that it's what the world needs now, and we need the voice of the feminine and the energy to balance what's happening in the world, and to try to heal our earth and come back into a sense of wholeness, because it's been so male dominated for so long. And look where we are. Look what the situation is. And one of the things that I talked about at Wisdom 2.0, and I just spoke this conference called Wisdom 2.0 in San Francisco a couple of weeks ago, I talked about how we don't really acknowledge how the ecological situation that we're in right now is caused by the spiritual values of patriarchy, of splitting spirit and matter, and the dominance of man over nature and women, and how key this patriarchal view is in terms of understanding the causes of global warming and our whole situation that we're in right now. I don't hear that talked about as much as I think it should be, because I feel like that has to shift. Those values have to shift, and we have to come into the understanding of the Great Mother, that ground of being, and also the need for a balanced voice. I mean, ultimately, it's not about that the feminine needs to dominate. It just needs a seat at the table. We need a seat at the table and also to come into balance. So because we're a tantric community and we're tantric practitioners, it's really about the divine couple. And that doesn't necessarily mean a heterosexual couple, but the divine couple in the sense of that connection of the non-dual connection and in that experience of union, and then that sort of spreading out into the greater collective. So the mother principle and the earth, in many cultures is called the mother, the great mother, Gaia. I just visited a good friend of mine in Santa Fe, Cynthia Jurs, who has created a meditation practice with Gaia as the deity and as the great mother. So we need to see her that way. We need to experience the earth as sacred, and that matter is sacred, and spirit isn't up there and out there somewhere. It's here, and it's in our relationships, in our families, and so the mother is core of all that, and I'm so happy to be your mother.
I'm happy to have you as my mother.
Thank you. So thanks everybody. I hope this was illuminating and a beautiful moment for us together.
Yeah,
we're not physically together so much anymore, so it's special to be together, and it just happened to be Mother's Day, so we're taking...
and Dakini Day.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. So we thought we'd ride that wave and come to you together, and lots of love to everybody, and have a beautiful week, and we'll see you next Sunday.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day, and happy Dakini's Day.
Yeah. Yay.
Thank you so much, Lama Tsultrim and Tulku Ösel, for your time and effort in being here with us. Your conversation has been illuminating indeed, and so inspiring, truly so special. We just feel very privileged to have witnessed it. So thank you. And may your precious teachings continue to benefit beings. Thank you. And dear audience, we appreciate your presence today and always. It's wonderful to be together on this journey, this path with you. And now, following the tradition, going all the way back to the time of the Buddha 2600 years ago, you have the opportunity to make an offering of dana to Lama Tsultrim and Tulku Ösel. Dana is a Pali and Sanskrit word that means generosity, and offering dana creates an auspicious connection and is a beautiful expression of the interdependence between teacher and student. Dana directly recognizes the precious gift of the teacher and the teachings, without which one could not practice the Dharma. If you would like to offer dana, please follow the links you will see in the chat in a moment. And once again, thank you so much, everyone. And may we meet again and again on the path, and may all beings benefit everywhere.
Om tare tu re, Mangalam Shri Mahapani Swaha. Om tare tu re, Mangalam Shri Mahapani Swaha. Om tare tu re, Mangalam Shri Mahapani Swaha. tare tu